It's the Y'all Show, Jon Rawl, and we are so glad that you could join us here on the show that's all about the Southeast. Each and every Monday through Friday, we are here on the All Southern program, bringing you lots of great Southern news, information, and on Mondays, we do it all with the storytelling front. And most of these storytelling issues coming from Jerry Short, you can go check it out. Kind of like Donald Trump's got those fact checkers out there checking him. Unlike the president, I do believe most of what is all said about Jerry Short or what he says just might be true. And we're going to go to Toccopola now here on the Y'all Show and be joined by the Toccopola Storyteller, Jerry Short. Hello, Jerry. Jerry, if I sound a little out of breath, there's a reason for that. And I'll tell you what, I was thinking of you, the reason I'm out of breath.
Well, golly, you said it. They could check me out, so it might not all be good. Let's wait on a background check a little bit.
Yeah. Well, isn't it amazing?
True,
I don't ever remember some of these networks doing these fact checks on Obama or George W. Bush or any of these other presidents, and now with President Trump. And look, Pinocchio may not have anything on Donald Trump, but it is amazing that they made such a big deal out of that. But I got to tell you an honest tale here, Jerry. So I may look a little disheveled if you're watching the Y'all Show here with me today. I might be also slightly out of breath because, Jerry, I had you in mind because I was doing something and I was having a hard time. I was at the brink.
Well, that would definitely make you think of me.
Yeah, well, I was not sure I could finish it. I wanted to give up. I wanted to quit. It was
made you think of me. But I don't quit.
Well, I thought that it would be the best thing to just walk away and just end it.
No.
But because I was thinking of you, Jerry Short, I didn't quit, and I want to thank you for that, Jerry. Before coming on here talking to you for only the second time, and the first time was only about 3 days ago. For the second time since I was in college, I actually ran/jogged nonstop for 2 miles. 2 miles. That's pretty good for me.
2 miles, pretty good. That's good for anybody.
And I thought of you because you're a guy, before I knew you, the rumor is, and it may be fake news, that you used to run miles and miles and miles.
That's true. Unfortunately, I'd roll miles and miles and miles now. I don't know if I'd run them or not. Guy asked me at a basketball game the other day, said, "Hey, what happened to you? If you stand up and lay down, are you the same height?" So, I didn't know whether to hit him or laugh or go along with him. But anyway, yeah, I did. I used to run, never missed a night for, gosh, I bet 25 years.
Well, I knew you told me that before, but I mean, it's hard to run 2 miles, and I'm amazed that I can even get there after only about a month of trying and building my way up.
You have to almost run your whole life, and I almost did. I know I was at airborne school when I was in my 33 at the 2nd Airborne School, and average age was 18 and 19. I'd outrun everybody over there. One guy sprained my ankle jumping. We had a jump, and he said, "You're going to have to quit trying to walk in the image of John Wayne." I know we know that's what you're doing, but at your age, how can you continue to run as much as you do? So, but I loved it. You get a runner's high, and it's something that I'd give anything. If I hadn't gotten frostbitten feet in the desert, I'd still be running.
Well, I want to ask you, Jerry, I mean, what is it for you, and maybe I can kind of borrow this, what is it in your brain that makes you keep going? Because like I told you, it's just so darn easy to just quit. And it may be running. It might be something else, nothing to do with exercise. Maybe you got a effort that you're trying to complete at work. Mentally, how do you do it?
It's more mental. It's like busting through a wall. When you run, you can start out, I don't care if you run every day. But once you start running, at first you say, you might have just gone 2 miles where normally you would go 10 or 15 miles at night. And you'll say, I don't know if I can go any further. And then all of a sudden, you bust through that wall and you can run forever. And it's a mental thing. And if you stop doing it, you lose that mental part of it. And I think it is a runner's high. It's such a thing known as a runner's high, and you do get that.
Is that
And
legal?
the kind if as long as you hadn't had anything stronger than maybe water or tea, I'd say it's probably legal.
Okay.
But if you've had the other, I don't believe you could run 10 miles. You might make a mile, and that would be it. But
Jerry,
you
what
can do
what
a
what
mile
what was
pretty
it
good.
with you that even got you to start running more than, let's say, 2 miles
Well,
like I'm doing right now?
I tell you, the first time I really ever started running, uh, I'd watched a high school football team work out, and then they would run afterwards. It'd be the last thing they did before they went to the dressing room. And I'd be like a sixth grader, and they would run. He'd tell them, let's run 10 laps or 20. And I would stay out around the football field, and I would stay out there, and I'd run 30 laps. And the older I got, it become more of a challenge to run a bigger distance, and I just kept adding to it and adding to it, and then I got a friend he still runs, and he's 69 or 70, and he I started him running. He wasn't running, and he started running with me. And he runs slow now, but he runs 3 to 5 miles most every day. And he said if he misses a day, it really takes it away from him. So I'm really jealous of him because it does make you feel better, makes you feel better about yourself. Your conditioning is better, your health is better. I think at my age now, it's a mental thing, but I think at my age now, I haven't had any problem except what I'm having now. You know about that, but it's because I have a blood vein in my, I would say brain, but I know you'd come back at me with something in my head that dissipated, and the doctor told me that was just bad. The neurologist, he said that's just the luck of the draw. So that's the only thing I've ever had. Kidneys and overeating and heart, everything is perfect except that. And I think I credit all of that to, I said probably 25 miles I ran regular, but I ran probably 40 years constantly.
Well, I wanted to
And,
ask you.
and
You said you did it for 25 years, but how long was your typical run slash jog, or was it all running?
uh, no, I would run at a really good pace. When me and this friend of mine would run, he would be maybe on one side of the highway, and I'd be on the other side, and I would look at him across, and we'd almost be at a sprint, and I would say, Johnny, are you setting this pace? And he would holler back at me, No, no, you're setting this pace. So it seemed like we would get faster and faster, even though his peripheral vision out my side of my eyes watching him, he'd be watching me, and we'd get faster and faster and faster. So, it's a situation that you can kind of run the pace you want to run, and any pace would be good. What you just did you some good, I promise you.
Well, I do feel
And
better, and I don't know if I look better. That's certainly up to the audience here that are tuning in to y'all show on our YouTube channel and at y'all TV at y'all.com. It does make you, once you complete it, like I said, it was, I thought of you because I just felt like quitting after a half a mile.
now I will tell you, the humidity and the heat will get you, no matter how good a runner you are. South Louisiana has really heavy humidity. I had a brother-in-law that lived 7 or 8 miles from where my wife's parents lived. And I would leave at night, and I would say, I'm going to run up to their house and go
Literally run
swimming in
up
their
there. Literally run.
uh, oh, I'd literally run up the highway
Okay.
along Bayou Lafourche, Highway 1 in South Louisiana. And it's really humid along Bayou Lafourche. And I would run at a real pace, and then I would go swimming in their swimming pool. But every time, just about because of the humidity, I would call her parents' home and say, You mind coming picking me up? What? What? You're not gonna run home? No, no, ma'am. I think I'll let you pick me up because that humidity would drain you. And I'll tell you a football story. That's one reason that LSU is so good in Baton Rouge
Oh, really?
because the humidity will drain another team. And it's that way in Mississippi also. Ole Miss beat Notre Dame when Notre Dame won a national championship. It beat them 21-14 in Jackson. And the humidity got them. Notre Dame lost the ball game strictly because they were not prepared for the deep southern heat. And when Ole Miss would go to LSU, I asked Coach Johnny Vaught one time, Ole Miss had played LSU 18 times out of 24 times that he coached them. And he played them in Baton Rouge.
You're
And
saying out of 24 years they played in Baton Rouge,
they played in Baton
18
Rouge,
out of
the
those
stadium
24.
would hold 60,000. Ole Miss's stadium would hold 40,000, and they split the gate.
Huh.
And so Coach Vaught would play that. The year that Billy Cannon had his run and got him the Heisman Trophy, the 57 game and they had been played in Oxford unusually, but the 58 game when LSU won the national championship in Baton Rouge, Ole Miss went down there and got beat by LSU 14-0, and the humidity got them. So Vaught figured it out, but anyway, then he went back down there in 59 the following year when Billy Cannon had his run. And I don't know if you've ever seen the picture or not, but that's a home stadium in Baton Rouge, the Tiger Stadium. He's sitting on the bench with an oxygen cup over his nose and mouth.
Billy Cannon?
Billy Cannon is. After he ran 87
Oh,
yards.
hold on a second, Jerry. I can't say that without saying this. Billy Cannon, great All-American.
There you go, Billy Cannon, great All-American. Go.
Now, who said that?
Tigers.
Who was it that said that on that famous clip of him running that touchdown in 59?
Yeah, that was John Polich was their announcer at LSU then.
From
A
Napoleonville?
man from Napoleon. Yeah, you got that from Napoleonville.
Go Tigers.
And he said, hold up, listen to that applause, ladies and gentlemen. That applause is for a great All-American, Billy Cannon.
Oh, gosh.
But it was that humidity, it even got Billy Cannon. So you just never know.
Well, Jerry, I'm not Billy Cannon, so guess where I'm running? Of course, first of all, it's February, so I don't think there's too much humidity in Dixie here.
No, you're not getting
now.
any humidity.
But call me a wimp. I'm running indoors at a gym that's got an indoor track. Is that cheating?
Well, that's all right. No, you got to start somewhere.
Okay.
And I don't care if it's a treadmill or a bicycle. I'd give anything. If I didn't have this deal, I can't get hot right now because of the blood spilling in what brain I have. And I've got bicycles and exercises and airdynes and stuff because, when I was in Green Beret, Special Forces and Airborne and Rangership and all that kind of stuff, I just would run all the time and do push-ups and sit-ups. But now I can't get hot. So until they figure out the medication to save me and get me back where I can do something. But even with it cold outside, the other day, my ponds were going over from all this rain, and I got down under the hill down there, and it was cool, and I got damp wet and got a little hot, and I'll be dogged. Got a little of that blood dripping back down in the top of my brain from that vein I don't have. But anyway, for you, you can get out there and run with the best of them.
Well, I'll do that, Jerry Short, and you can live vicariously through me as I'm running and struggling past that first mile trying to make it to 2 miles. And who knows, I might break that barrier and go to 3 miles here pretty soon.
Listen, I may have mentioned this to you before, but there's a friend of mine, he's older than I am, but he was an engineer on the railroad.
Yeah.
On the Illinois Central Railroad. He didn't start running until he was about 40. And he's run the Boston Marathon twice, the New York Marathon, and a bunch more. And I've seen pictures of him. And you remember Shorter that ran the stuff? It was a famous runner.
No.
And won the Boston. I've seen them together. I've seen him a picture of him with the clock coming under. Now, he's not a 2.5 minute guy on a marathon, but I've seen him coming under the thing with like 4 minutes. And you know, for a guy that didn't start running and never had run till he was that age, and then started running all over the country, you know, 26 miles, that's a pretty doggone good thing. So there's hope for everybody.
Well,
And
I
he
hope I
just
don't
finally
quit.
quit.
It's so tempting to quit. And one of these days, maybe like you used to do, what was the average distance you would run when you were in your prime each day?
I would always never run less than 5. And
Golly.
I tell you, I worked a lot, and we'd cruise timber and be in the woods all day sometimes. And whoever would be with me, I'd tell them, just go ahead and get in my pickup and go on up to the interstate at Shoney's, and we might be 10 miles from there. And I'd say, I'm just going to run on up there. And that would be after 6 hours in the woods climbing
Yeah.
hills.
That's a
So
lie. There's no way. No
that is
way.
definitely, I can bring that to fruition with the
And we're
guy if I
talking
ever
in the
need to bring him on
summertime in Mississippi, likely, right?
Probably just any time. It wouldn't
Okay.
have mattered.
10
And
miles on country roads. And then,
well, it was an asphalt road.
and
It
you're telling me you'd jog or run 10 miles and then show up at a Shoney's or somewhere like that and actually eat a meal inside. I assume you sweat, so you had to
Now
be
I'm gonna
pretty.
tell you, I was a little bit unusual. I always ate my dinner meal at night before I ran.
Ah, okay.
And the guy that ran with me every night, when we ran together for so many years, it still runs. He couldn't do that. He couldn't eat a bite. He'd throw it up. So he would eat later that night. But I would always eat about an hour or so ahead. And then we would hit our area that we had laid out on the highways. It was a town between two towns, was 20 miles. It was 10 miles down to Grenada to a Duck Hill and 10 miles back. And then sometimes when the cars come in, you had to run on the shoulder of the road and run on rock and all that kind of
Did you
stuff.
ever have an encounter with snakes?
Oh gosh, yeah, in the woods, obviously, but
Well, I'm talking about while running down the
uh,
highway.
no, not really.
Okay.
Nothing I can think about. But I'll tell you one encounter I had one time, which was kind of funny. Uh, at the academy we had, the private school that my kids went to, I would go out there at night if I was by myself sometime, and we had a track laid off, but it was rough and it was dirt, and I would run it and run it, and I saw it was late at night. A guy pulled up down at the end of the field a lot of nights and watched me run. And then he left, and I was
A
about
stalker. You had a
30.
stalker.
Yeah, and I was about 32 or 3 or 4. I think I was getting ready to go back to that airborne school. So I was probably 32. And so I was running a lot of extra and running a lot of speed. And so he stopped me one night, and when I finished, and I'd walk it off then, I'd probably walk around the track, which is, 400 meters. I'd walk around the track, and then I'd walk down to the end, and he was sitting down there, and I still looked pretty young. I have a shirt off, and it was at night, and he said, look, I coached track over at the high school, the public school, and he said, you wouldn't be interested in transferring over there. I need somebody that can run distance like you. And I said, Coach Pickett, I'm 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 32 years old. I said,
Well,
I think
you may never have finished high school. He didn't know.
no, he didn't know, and I never
I
had
mean,
been
you are
over
from
there.
Mississippi. Come on.
There you go. I mean, I could have been eligible, and I might have even made a C if I was lucky.
Yeah.
But anyway, I always thought that was funny. Later, he came to be our coach, and my daughter, I guess she was fortunate enough. She was the fastest girl in Mississippi, and had a college scholarship in track, but we didn't take it. She didn't take it, and but she ran 100 and 200
Ah.
and hurdles.
Running's in his
She was
family. I believe
fast.
your grandson's also been a trackster, and
Yeah, he was, and then I got a granddaughter now that runs high school in the ninth grade,
wow.
100 and 200.
Well, I'll keep all of
And
them in my head when I'm running and I'm up there going, I don't think I can make it to this quarter-mile mark. I just want to go home and play with video games and drink milk and eat cookies.
wait, that reminds me. Have you seen the commercial of the boy and his grandmother, and he's laying there and he's playing with his phone, and then he puts his dog on a leash to run on a treadmill,
No?
and then he picks the phone up and he calls his grandmother who's in the kitchen. And he says, Grandmother, can I have another one of those Cokes? I don't remember if that's what it was. It was a drink. And you should have saw the look on her face. It just went sour. And then she looked up at him, and he's on the phone, sitting down, calling for her to come in there and bring him a Coke while he plays with his computer.
Mm.
And so, I mean, that's where we've gone, unfortunately.
That's where we
with a lot
have
of youth.
devolved to. And one thing a video game can't do, nor a text, is get you out there and go 2 miles or a Jerry Short 10-mile run. That's where I'll let you know when I get to that 10-mile mark. Hey,
Well,
Jerry.
you'll get there. I promise you.
Right.
You just keep fighting it, horse.
Well, on Happy Gilmore, it was all in the hips. Well, here
you'll be glad.
Well, hopefully it's not hips with jogging and running. It's all in the head. It's all in the head.
It's in you gotta break through that wall.
And I thank Chubbs for reminding me of that. Jerry, it's President's Day. It used to be George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and others were celebrated. Now we've kind of lumped them all into one holiday. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about President's Day. Old George and maybe some of these other presidents, even number 45, might get a salute here on the Y'all Show. Y'all stay where you are. We're going to wrap up this Y'all Show on this President's Day after this break. And welcome back to the show that's all about the South. I'm Jon Rawl, and this here, what you're listening to and watching, is the show that's all about the South. This is the Y'all Show, and each week we have Jerry Short, the Toccopola Storyteller. He's kind enough to join us here on the All Southern program, and as we wrap up this President's Day edition of the Y'all Show, I want to talk to Jerry about this day. Of course, I'm actually old enough, Jerry. I remember when George Washington had his own sort of birthday celebration, and then Honest Abe, he got a birthday celebration somewhere around, I think it's February 16th, something like that. And now we just have one day called President's Day to honor not only those two, number 1 and number 16, but all 45, I assume. What do you think of that, sir?
Well, I didn't know you was going to bring that up, but I've read where...
You've read? Oh, my gosh.
Maybe it was Braille. I'm not sure, but anyway, I don't believe all the states recognize
President's Day.
President's Day.
No.
I think there's something like 25 or don't, or half of them almost. And if you know, Alabama, they only recognize Washington and Madison, I believe.
Is that right? I had not heard of that.
Because they didn't want to honor Abraham Lincoln because of the Civil War and the war between the states, who is kind of in that mix. But I think there's a few states that don't even have President's Day, if you'll check into that.
Well, most people don't work, or I should say most people do work at your federal offices that are closed on this day. It is a federal holiday. So if you had a check coming in the mail, Jerry, you don't have to rush to the post office today.
That's right. But Mississippi, I'm not sure how many. This law changed in the early 70s, didn't it? When we used to just have Lincoln's birthday and Washington's birthday. And then they combined them to be the just President's Day. Which, if you go back to a lot of presidents, there's some that I wouldn't want to honor, I don't think.
Some people wouldn't want to honor the one we got right now. I remember whenever there was a little bit more of a distinction of the different presidents, Washington and then Lincoln, and it looks like President's Day is falling more in line with Lincoln's birthday. But I specifically remember when George Washington's birthday was celebrated, and the tradition across the country was you got a piece of cherry pie that day.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't think Mississippi recognizes President's Day as such because of Lincoln. Now, Abraham Lincoln, this is hard to believe, and I'll pass it on to my grandchildren every now and then, and they'll say, "Well, that's not what we learn in school." But Abraham Lincoln was never president of the state of Mississippi, although Mississippi became a state in 1820, I believe. And the war was in 1861.
Mm-hmm.
However, excuse me. However, Lincoln was put into office. By the time he was by the time he took office, Mississippi had seceded from the Union.
Yeah, in those days, inaugurals were in March.
March then.
Yeah,
and then he was probably his assassination was in February.
No, April.
No, it was April. Yeah, it was later. Also.
It was right after Appomattox.
And
Jerry, were you asleep that day in high school?
Well, no, but Mississippi, he was assassinated. Yeah, I was probably asleep on. If it had something to do with the War of Northern Aggression, I probably took it personal. But anyway, he was assassinated before Mississippi became back into the Union. So I don't think that Abraham Lincoln served a day as president for the state of Mississippi, and probably 2 or 3 or 4 other southern states.
I would think about 8 of them at that point by the time.
It's 8 of them?
It was around 8. Well, I mean, I think it's honestly about 7 because the first Confederate flag, the first national flag, which is now the basis of Georgia's state flag, its first, I guess, design had 7 stars, and then you added 4 more officially, and then Kentucky and Missouri were added as well as border states. But the first 7 I know were South Carolina, number 1, and then I think Mississippi was 2, followed by maybe Texas, and then Alabama, and then Georgia, North Carolina, and maybe Arkansas.
Who was last? Tennessee?
Tennessee was the last state. I think Virginia was the next to last state. That's one reason they moved the capital from Montgomery to Richmond as sort of an incentive for them to become a Confederate state.
Yeah.
They would move the national capital, Richmond,
and
which
that's where
ended up being a bad move.
Most of the leaders were. Yeah. Most of the leaders were there. Most of the generals, rather, as I speak.
Mm-hmm.
Jefferson Davis, I think, was born in Kentucky. Forget the town, Frankfort or something like that. No, it wasn't Frankfort. That's the capital in it. Anyway, it was Fairfield, maybe. Does that sound right?
It's in western Kentucky. If you've ever driven by there, it's pretty amazing. It looks just like the Washington Monument. It may even be taller than the Washington Monument where Jefferson Davis was born. I'd like to see them take that monument down. Well,
it is a pretty big monument, and the church, I believe, is still there too. The last time I was there, the church that Jefferson Davis went to
in Kentucky.
It's right on the Tennessee line.
Okay,
it's not far. I mean, I'd say it's 20 miles from Tennessee.
Well, of course, he ended up settling in Mississippi around the Natchez area and claimed Mississippi. He was a senator, U.S. senator, and then a Secretary of War, a war hero, was with the Mississippi Legion in the war with Mexico. Stand fast, Mississippians, his famous line in the Battle of Veracruz. Hey, I paid attention in school. I'm kidding. We didn't learn about Jefferson Davis in my school because I wasn't from Mississippi, but you do bring up a good point of talking about Jeff Davis. I like to consider him one of the 46 American presidents. So we'll throw him in the loop here today on President's Day because this is not the United States President's Day. This is the President's Day, and why not throw? Especially if you're from Mississippi, Jefferson Davis is the only Mississippian to ever become president of the United States. And then Kentucky, well, they can claim him too, but Kentucky can also claim Abraham Lincoln. And I've
been to his little cabin too. It's right there below Barchtown or something, and right off of the Kentucky.
I apologize, Kentuckians. I think those are your only 2, but maybe Zachary Taylor had a connection to Kentucky.
Zachary Taylor had one to Mississippi too. Didn't Jefferson Davis marry his daughter?
He did, but I'm not so sure Zachary Taylor lived in Mississippi. I think
I think they got married in Natchez or something.
Well,
I'm not sure.
I think Zachary Taylor may have ended up living in New Orleans, and the sad thing was that Jefferson Davis and Zachary Taylor's daughter were only married a few months when she died.
That's true. That's true. And
And I didn't
I
even
don't.
major in history, y'all.
Yeah, I know it. You're pretty good in history. I remember when you took that test that my wife got you to take
Yeah.
Wednesday.
I will tell
And
you, going back to the original president, and I think the greatest American president, George Washington. Without him, this country would not have existed, and we wouldn't have the sort of country that we have because of his willingness to not be a king.
he's a
And
man.
and you know the story about the cherry tree with George Washington.
Well, he didn't cut it down. That's
No, he
right.
didn't. But it brings up a story my father likes to tell. My father's a little bit of a jokester, and
Okay.
and here's something he says that maybe you can relate to this, Jerry. My dad, the great Clayton Rawl, he goes around saying, George Washington, he told a lie. He chopped down the cherry tree, right? Isn't that how the story goes?
He refused to cut it down.
Didn't he chop it down? Say
He chopped it. Yeah, the words was
but
chopped.
then he lied about it, didn't he?
I thought he actually just had hit it and then quit, and
Okay.
it didn't fall. I mean, that was kind of how I remember it. Now, we may need to get our history books opened and see, but either way you look at it, the cherry tree and George Washington
Yeah.
are
Well, my
synonymous.
dad's joke that he likes to tell is George Washington, well, he didn't tell a lie, but my dad says, well, I can tell a lie, but I won't.
But I won't. Might feel a little bit.
So he feels a little
but
bit more
I
empowered than
won't
even
do
our first president of the U.S. Talking to Jerry Short, wrapping up here on this President's Day 2020. How are you celebrating President's Day, Jerry?
Well, I tell you what, right now I'm thinking about the war of northern aggression
Oh,
and
the perfect
President
subject
Jefferson
here on
Davis.
President's
So
Day.
I think I'll kind of leave it at that because I'm going to have to look on the calendar and make sure that we actually do it in Mississippi. So if Toccopola don't do it, I won't do it.
Well,
But
your post office there is certainly doing it. And
well, you know how post offices are, and that reminds me of a quick president joke.
okay,
And it's not a joke; it's a president situation.
okay.
But when I was a boy in a town of 3,300, there was only one Republican that lived in this town that I knew lived here.
And that was commonplace across the South, at least. There were no Republicans except people who
No,
worked for the post office.
this would have been in like 58 or so, right?
Yeah,
He
I
was
guess.
the postmaster.
Mhm.
Obviously, he was appointed by a Republican president.
Mhm.
So, anyway, that's my President's Day philosophy that you got to be in the right party at the right time to get a government job.
Well, I knew that story from a fella in the Carolinas. He told me, Jerry, that he growing up in the 50s. He only knew one Republican, and it was the postmaster in his town. And
Oh, yeah.
he said the whole town went around whispering, "Hey, that guy's a
Are you
Republican."
serious?
Yeah.
Well, I'll be dog. I thought I was the only one that
No,
had
no, no,
that
no.
story.
He said everybody in town would go around whispering, "Hey, that guy's he's a Republican."
We did too. I mean, when I was 12 years old, if he'd come out the post office door, he'd point up there and say, "There he is. There's Mr. Parker. Gosh, he's a Republican. Did you know it? Did you heard that?" So
Times have certainly
I guess that was
changed.
kind of something that we all thought about.
Yeah, times have changed. Jerry, thank you for the memories and the great inspiration for me and maybe all of you out there listening and watching to us. If you're thinking about running a half mile today, let Jerry Short be an inspiration. If he could run 10 miles with his work clothes on in the middle of the summer, maybe we can truck through what we've got to run here this week. Thank you, sir. Happy President's Day to you.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'll look forward to our next meeting and see if we can come up with a Republican.
We can laugh at Republicans. We sure can.
Okay.
Jerry Short, the Toccopola Storyteller. Well, that will wrap up our Y'all show. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll be right back here on Tuesday with a whole new show that's all about the South. Thanks for listening and watching the Y'all Show.